Alright, so how's it going? In this video, we're going to look at verifying identities. So before we get started, let's look at some basic identities. So the first identities we have here, we have the Pythagorean identity, sine squared plus cosine squared is 1, tangent squared plus 1 is secant squared, and cotangent squared plus 1 is cosecant squared. So, we'll have to use these or, use them when they're solved. And then we've got these identities here. Tangent is sine over cosine and cotangent is cosine over sine. Now, how do you verify identities? Well, there's really no set way to say, okay, do this every single time and it'll work every single time. Because sometimes when you try something, when you try to verify an identity, it'll work out real nice. And then sometimes you try to verify it a certain way and it just turns into a big old mess. So the way that you get good at verifying identities is practice. Okay, you've just got to practice these things. And what I'm going to do is we're going to go through and we're going to work some problems and see some different things that we can do to verify these things. And so you'll have an idea of how to, well, let's try this and see if this works to verify this identity. I mean, sometimes when you're verifying these things, you'll start out verifying it one way and you see that it's not going anywhere. Well, you just have to erase it and try something else. That's what this is. And soon, when you work enough problems, you'll get to the point where you can do couple steps in your head to see if it's going where you need it to go. So the first thing I'd like to start out by saying is whenever you're verifying identities, a lot of times the best way to start these things is to rewrite everything in terms of sine and cosine. Okay? Most of the time that'll work. Okay? Sometimes it makes it a lot tougher, but most of the time it works pretty good. So let's go ahead and get started. So when we verify identities, you want to take the more complicated looking side and see if you can simplify it to the other side. So obviously in this one, we're going to take the left-hand side because it's more complicated than the right-hand side. So I've got sine x plus 1 times sine x minus 1. So here we can just multiply this out. This is going to be sine squared x minus 1. Okay, remember that's a plus b times a minus b, which is a squared minus b squared. All right, so we've got sine squared x minus 1, and we're trying to get to cosine. Well, is there anything we know that can get us, if we have something in terms of sine, to get us in terms of cosine? Well, this identity up here, sine squared plus cosine squared. Well, if we solve this thing for cosine squared, we get cosine squared x equals 1 minus sine squared x. So you can see here, this right-hand side over here, it looks real close to this. It's just the sign that's in front of sine squared and the sign that's in front of 1, they're opposite. See, this is a plus in front of the 1, this is a minus. This is a minus in front of sine squared, this is a plus in front of sine squared. So how can I change these? How can I change the signs in front of each term? Well, I can factor out a negative. And so that's going to give me negative sine squared x plus 1, right? And so this is going to be negative, and let's just rewrite it with the 1 first. You see that? 1 minus sine squared x. Well, what is 1 minus sine squared x? Well, we can see 1 minus sine squared is cosine squared. So I've got the negative here, and then the 1 minus sine squared I'm going to replace with cosine squared. And there your identity is verified. All right, so the point that I'm getting at here is not only do you need to know these identities here, you need to be able to recognize them when they're solved for different terms. So for instance, like this identity here, if we move the tangent squared over, that's secant squared minus tangent squared is equal to 1. Just be able to recognize stuff like that also. All right, let's look at this second one here. All right, so we got a lot of stuff going on here. So I'm going to take the left-hand side, and I'm going to see if I can simplify it to the right-hand side. All right. Now, if you remember what I said at the beginning of the video, a lot of times the best way to start out, okay, now I'm not saying it's the best way every time, but most of the time, this is what you want to try first. Try rewriting everything in terms of sine and cosine. So this would be 1 plus 1 over cosine x. See, remember, secant is 1 over cosine. And then times sine x. And then we've got tangent. Well, tangent is sine over cosine. You see that? All right, so what do we do here? Well, let's multiply everything. So remember how to multiply fractions. You multiply all the numerators together, multiply all the denominators together. So this is 1 plus sine squared over cosine squared. And hopefully right now you can see where this is going. Hopefully you can see what this is coming to. So this is what? 1 plus, and remember, sine over cosine is tangent. Well, I've got sine squared over cosine squared. So this is tangent squared. Now, what is 1 plus tangent squared? Well, remember, 1 plus tangent squared, or tangent squared plus 1, it doesn't matter which one's first, is equal to secant squared. Well, what are we trying to verify? We're trying to verify that this is equal to secant squared, and we can see that 1 plus tangent squared is secant squared. All right. Now, if you notice all the details that I'm showing in each step, you want to do that when you're verifying identities. You want to show every little thing, okay? Because we're verifying this identity here. All right, so let's take a look at this one. All right, so this one, we look at this thing, and remember I said you take the more complicated looking side and you try to simplify it to the other side. Well, which side looks more complicated in this problem? Well, they both kind of look the same, don't they? You see that? They both look the same. So let's just take one of them. Okay, so let's just take the left-hand side. So we've got cosine alpha over 1 minus sine alpha. Now, what do we need to do here? We need to show that this can be simplified to the other side. So how do I even begin here? All right, so don't try to take that 1 minus sine alpha and write that in terms of cosine, because 1 minus sine alpha is not equal to cosine. 1 minus sine squared is equal to cosine squared. Okay? All right, so what I notice on the right-hand side over here is I have a 1 plus sine alpha up in the numerator. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply numerator and denominator by 1 plus sine alpha. All right, so there's nothing wrong with multiplying numerator and denominator by this, because remember, what are we multiplying by here? We're multiplying by 1. And if you multiply anything by 1, you get the same thing back. All right, so let's multiply this. So this is going to be cosine alpha times 1 plus sine alpha over, now this is what? A minus b times a plus b. So that's a squared, which is 1, minus b squared, which is sine squared. All right? Now let's look and see what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get the 1 plus sine alpha up here, which, okay, I have that. That's good. And I need cosine in the denominator. So how about we rewrite this 1 minus sine squared as cosine squared? So that's cosine alpha times 1 plus sine alpha over cosine squared alpha. And look at this. This and this cancel. I'm left with a 1, and I'm left with cosine alpha. So this is equal to 1 plus sine alpha over cosine alpha. And there's the right-hand side. See, that's what we were trying to show, this up here. And we showed it. All right? So that's another technique. You know, you can multiply numerator and denominator by something. Okay? All right, so how about this one? Well, the more complicated side looks like the left-hand side, doesn't it? So let's take cosecant x minus sine x over sine x. Write that in the middle. Over sine x. All right, so what could we do here? Well, now I'm not saying this is what you're going to want to do every single time, but one thing that you can do when you have a fraction like this, you got this numerator, you got this cosecant minus sine, and that's over a common denominator. One thing to try is splitting up the fraction. All right, split the fraction up. Now somehow I've got to get cotangent squared. Well, this term here, this sine x over sine x, well, that's 1, so that's good. But let's go ahead and rewrite everything in terms of sine, because isn't cosecant, that's 1 over sine, right? But actually, before we do that, let's split this up. See that? Minus 1. Because look, if I multiply this back out, cosecant times 1 over sine is just cosecant over sine. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to write cosecant as 1 over sine times 1 over sine minus 1. And so this is going to give me what? What is this going to give me? That's what? Cosecant squared minus 1. You see that? Cosecant squared minus 1. So what is that going to do? What does that equal? Well, let's go back up here. We've got this. Cotangent squared plus 1 is cosecant squared. All right, so let's just kind of jot that down here. So we've got cotangent squared plus 1 is equal to cosecant squared, right? So, well, look at this. Cosecant squared x minus 1. So let's subtract 1 to both sides. So cotangent squared x is equal to cosecant squared x minus 1. Oh, look at that. That's what we're looking for right here, cotangent squared. Well, this, you see this, is cotangent squared. So this is equal to cotangent squared x. And that's what I was talking about, not only knowing those identities, but being able to recognize them when they're solved for different terms. Okay. All right, here we got another one. All right, so let's take a look at this one. So obviously here we're going to look at the right-hand side. We're going to see if we can simplify the right-hand side to the left-hand side. So this is going to be 1 over cosecant x minus 1 minus 1 over cosecant x plus 1. So what am I going to do here? Well, here you can see that these fractions are split apart, and on the left-hand side, I've just got one term. So that kind of tells me, hey, let's combine these fractions. So let's get a common denominator, and you should know, since you're in trig, you should know how to get the common denominator. So here's my common denominator. All right. So here's our common denominator. What do we have to multiply to this denominator to get our common denominator? Well, that's cosecant plus 1. So cosecant plus 1 times 1 is cosecant plus 1. And then same thing here. What do I have to multiply to this denominator to get my common denominator? Well, that would be cosecant minus 1. So cosecant minus 1 times 1 is cosecant x minus 1. All right. So let's combine the fractions. So this is going to be cosecant x plus 1 minus cosecant x plus 1 over, all right, so before I write the denominator, let's just explain what I did here. So how did I get this minus cosecant x plus 1? Well, this is minus this entire numerator, so I have to distribute the negative. You see that? And then I think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and multiply this denominator out. That's cosecant squared x minus 1. All right, so this is going to give me 2 over. Now let's see, what am I looking to get? I'm looking to get tangent. And I notice here this cosecant squared minus 1. Well, we just did that, didn't we? See, the cosecant squared minus 1 is cotangent squared. So let's write that as cotangent squared x. All right, because remember, I'm trying to get tangent squared. Well, this is 2 times 1 over cotangent squared x, which is 2 times, and what's 1 over cotangent is tangent. So that's tangent squared x. And there is the left-hand side. All right. I'm telling you, in order to verify these identities, you've got to know your trig properties. You've got to know your properties, the ones up at the top of the page, and also the ones that I've been doing here, these reciprocal identities. You've got to know those also. Okay? If you don't know them, then you're not going to be able to work these things. All right? All right, so let's look at this one. So for this one, well, this one looks kind of complicated, I guess. I don't know. Let's take how about we take the left-hand side and see if we can simplify it to the right-hand side. All right. So I'm going to take tangent x minus cotangent x over sine x cosine x. Now, why don't you pause the video and see if you can do this one? What do you think you're going to do? How do you think you're going to start this one off? Okay. How would you start this one off? Well, maybe split it up. See, since the right-hand side split up, how about we try splitting it up? So this is going to be what? Tangent x over sine x cosine x minus cotangent x over sine x cosine x. All right, so how about, I think now what maybe what we could do now is maybe convert everything into terms of sine and cosine. Right tangent is sine over cosine. Right cotangent is cosine over sine. All right, but I think what I want to do before I do that is let's write this as tangent x times 1 over sine x cosine x. How about we do that? And then minus, and then let's do the cotangent x times 1 over sine x cosine x. Now, do you have to do this? No, you don't have to. But, I mean, I think separating them like that, it's going to make it easier for you to see, okay? Don't try to, I mean, if I know a lot of students, what they want to do is that they want to try to do as much as they can in one step. Don't do that when you're verifying these identities like this, okay? Don't do that. I mean, write as many steps as you need. You know, just take it one step at a time. All right, so now we've got tangent is sine over cosine, and then times 1 over sine x cosine x minus cosine x over sine x times 1 over sine x cosine x. All right. So, you know, you can, hopefully you can see here when by splitting this up like I did here, you see once you write the tangent and the cotangent in terms of sine and cosine, see, I think it makes it easier to multiply now. Okay. So now we'll look at this. Let's cancel out the sines. This cancels out the cosines. And so I am actually left with 1 over cosine squared x minus 1 over sine squared x. And let's see, we're trying to get to secant squared minus cosecant squared. We'll look at that. 1 over cosine squared is secant squared minus 1 over sine squared is cosecant squared. And there's the right-hand side. All right. All right, so now let's look at this one. All right, so this one right here, I mean, I don't know. Let's see what we've got. What side is more complicated? Well, they both kind of look complicated. Okay, so you know, so far what I've done is I've taken the more complicated looking side and I reduced it to the other side. And then remember earlier in the video we had that one problem where both of them looked the same, so I just took one side and I simplified it to the other side. I think when I multiplied by, what was it? Yeah, this one, where I multiplied by 1 plus sine over 1 plus sine. Remember that one? Okay, now that's fine and everything, but with this one, I'm going to show you another way that you are able to verify identities. And that is by let's take the left-hand side, sine x plus tangent x over secant x minus tangent x. All right. Well, I wrote that down wrong, didn't I? That should be secant All right. So when we look at this one, I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind is let's rewrite everything in terms of sine and cosine, and let's go from there. So that is going to be 1 over cosine x plus sine x over cosine x over 1 over cosine x minus sine x over cosine x. All right. Now, what do I do from here? What do I do from here? Well, I mean, when I look at these denominators here, see cosine x, cosine x, cosine x, cosine x, there's my denominator. So I think what I'm going to do is I am going to multiply everything by cosine x. And that's what that's going to do, is that's going to get rid of all these fractions here. All right, so let's do that. All right. Now I know this looks like a big old mess, doesn't it? It looks like, man, this is just so complicated. But all I've done is I just wrote cosine x next to each term. That's all I did. All right, so look what this does. Those cancel, that cancels, this cancels, and this cancels. So I am left with, what is that? 1 plus sine x over 1 minus sine x. All right, so that's what I get there. Okay, 1 minus sine x, 1 plus sine x over 1 minus sine x. And that's not the right hand side. Okay, but actually what I've done is, I took the left hand side. I said, okay, I simplified. Let's simplify it. Let's see what happens. It didn't work out. I didn't get the right hand side. So what I want to do now is I want to take the right hand side and simplify it. So let's take this right hand side. So that is 1 plus 2 sine x plus sine squared x over cosine squared x. Okay, so it didn't work out when I took the left hand side to reduce it, to see if I could reduce it to the right hand side. That didn't work. So now let's take this right hand side and reduce it. See what we can do when we reduce it. So right off the bat, I notice, okay, the numerator will factor. That is 1 plus sine x squared. All right. In other words, that's going to reduce to 1 plus, that factors into 1 plus sine x times 1 plus sine x, which is just 1 plus sine x squared. It's kind of like having this 1 plus 2x plus x squared, or x squared plus 2x plus 1. See, remember, this factors into x plus 1 times x plus 1, which is x plus 1 squared. It's just as written backwards. 1 plus x times 1 plus x, which is 1 plus x, all of that squared. All right. The only difference is instead of x, I've got sine x. All right. So that's how that factors. And yes, being in trig, you're supposed to know how to factor already. So hopefully you know how to do that. And that's over cosine squared x. All right, so it kind of looks like we're getting somewhere. Maybe this cosine squared here, let's rewrite that. So that's going to be 1 plus sine x squared over 1 minus sine squared x. All right, remember cosine squared is 1 minus sine squared. Now that's another thing I want to emphasize. Whenever you see, especially when you're verifying identities, whenever you see cosine squared, the first thing that should pop into your head is 1 minus sine squared. Or if you see sine squared, the first thing that ought to pop into your head is 1 minus cosine squared. All right? And the same thing, if you see cosine squared, think 1 minus sine squared. Or if you see sine squared, think cosine squared. That goes for this. And that goes for these other identities too, like we did up here, if I can find it, like this. You know, be able to recognize those identities solved for different terms. I know I've said that before, but, you know, it doesn't hurt to say it again. All right. So let's look at this. Well, you know what? This denominator here will factor. That's 1 plus, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite this as 1 plus sine x times 1 plus sine x, because when I factor this, look at this. That I get a 1 plus sine x term in the denominator. So I looked at this denominator here, and I notice when I factor that, I'll get a 1 plus sine x term. So that just kind of made me, okay, let's just write this out as 1 plus sine x times 1 plus sine x. And what happens there? They cancel. And so I am left with 1 plus sine x over 1 minus sine x. And wow, look at that. We have actually verified this identity. So you might be wondering, well, how did you verify it? That's not the left-hand side. But what did we do? We showed that we could take this side and this side. And what did we do? You see this? 1 plus sine over 1 minus sine. 1 plus sine over 1 minus sine. So that's another technique that you can use. If something looks real complicated, you know, and you think, well, you know, I don't know if I can't simplify it to that other side. Well, if you can take each side and you can reduce it to the same thing, that verifies the identity also. Okay? That verifies it also. So, that's verifying identities. The video is actually a little shorter than I thought it would be. I thought it would be a little longer than this. But, that it is what it is. You have got to practice these things. If you don't practice how to verify these things, you're never going to be able to do it. Okay? And the more you practice, the more little tricks you're going to learn, I guess you can say. You'll be able to do a couple of steps in your head. Okay? You'll be able to do a couple of steps in your head and see if it's going anywhere. That's what I do. Okay, I can do several steps in my head to see if it's going to go anywhere, to see if it's going to work. And how am I able to do that? Well, I've practiced. Okay, a lot of work on a lot of these things. Now let me say this. I mean, I've been doing this for over 20 years. Okay. And, are there some identities out there? Are there some trig identities that I try to verify that I may not get on the first way I try it? Well, of course. Okay? That's going to happen. It happens to me. Okay? I'll start out verifying it, and I see, well, this isn't going anywhere. So what do? Well, I erase it, and I try something else. That's what you've got to do with this stuff. Okay. All right. So I hope the video helped. Check out my other videos. Give me a like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you later.